So my mother's side.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Alex Bezanson, and this is the monthly meeting of the Abington Substance Abuse Coalition. A lot of you know that we started this coalition about a year ago, and it's a group of citizens from Abington that wants to do something about the drug epidemic in Abington and the surrounding towns. We meet once a month, typically on the second Wednesday of each month. This month it was changed because we have a guest speaker. I'm going to turn it over to a couple other members that have a few announcements to make, and Elaine will actually tell you what the mission of our group is, and then Charlene will tell you about a couple of upcoming events, and then we'll introduce our guest speaker tonight.
Okay. Our mission is, I'll read it. The mission of the Abington Substance Abuse Coalition is to research, develop strategies to educate, support, and be a resource to our community. The coalition will work towards prevention, support, and recovery as it strives to stamp out the stigma of addiction while promoting a path to recovery for those affected by addiction.
And now Charlene will read a couple of upcoming events where our coalition will be present.
There are parent-teacher conferences coming up in this month and next month. For the Folio School, 10/27 and 10/28, and the high school is November 17th and 18th. We'll have the Hidden in Plain Sight set up at the conferences so parents can go in and check that out and see what that's all about. We have our own Hidden in Plain Sight that we've put together, so parents can check that out while they're there, meet with teachers.
Can someone just explain a little bit for those who don't know what Hidden in Plain Sight is? Hidden in Plain Sight is a room that they set up that it's supposed to symbolize a child's room. And we put things in there that maybe the parents don't realize are actually drug paraphernalia. So it's very interesting. Our room has about
60 items.
60 items in it, and they are all somehow related to drug use and
Drug or alcohol.
So it's really worth it. Take 10 minutes out of your time when you go to the parent-teacher conferences to take a look at that. And now, Elaine will introduce our guest speaker for the night.
For tonight, we have Cheryl Jurier, who will be speaking on one of the questions on the ballot this coming November. It's question 4 on the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. You want to?
Do you want to go to the podium? Or- Yes,
Yeah.
the cameraman wants
Up to the podium. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, my And with me is Denise Clooney. She's like my partner.
Hi Denise.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for doing Hidden Plain Sight. I've done it twice, and it's remarkable.
All right. So, November 8th is when question 4 will be presented to the voters. So in November, Massachusetts will vote on whether to legalize and commercialize the marijuana industry here in the Commonwealth. And before you vote, please be certain you understand the details. Is everybody familiar with question 4 and the summary part of it? Has everybody read it? And
No, not really.
What's that?
I've read what the question on the,
Well, you got this, probably, everybody
Yeah.
got this in the mail, but this is actually the summary. It's a 24-page
oh, I've read what's in the-
summary that the pro-marijuana people actually wrote. So, in 2008, Massachusetts voters passed a ballot that decriminalized small amounts of marijuana, and what that means is that you can have an ounce or less of marijuana and not be arrested. It's still illegal. They can fine you $100, but more than likely they won't. So the marijuana people try to convince you that we should legalize marijuana, and that's already part of it. In 2012, Massachusetts voters approved a ballot measure to legalize medical marijuana. As of September, there were 169 registered physicians and 32,000 licensed, or 32,000 registered people with medical ID cards. So again, the pro-marijuana people try to convince you that they're trying to legalize medical marijuana, and it's already legalized. But this debate is about this 24-page proposed approach to legalizing the commercial sale and use of recreational marijuana. The summary was written for and by the marijuana industry with only one thing in mind, and that's to make a profit, putting their own profits ahead of our kids and our communities. So now I want to share with you some of the things that are in this summary. And home growing is one of the biggest things. And this summary says that 37 days after the election, on December 15th of this year, people can start growing marijuana in their own homes. Municipalities will not be allowed to prevent, regulate, tax, or license growing in residences. Anybody can grow. You can grow, she can grow, anybody can grow. You can grow 6 plants in your home, up to 12 per, 6 per person, 12 per household, okay? Each plant grows to be about 5 feet tall, yields about a pound of marijuana at about $250 to $300 an ounce. You're allowed to give away an ounce. You're allowed to have up to 10 ounces in your possession, but you cannot sell it. So as of December 15th this year, every household in Massachusetts has the right, without being licensed, registering, or anything, to grow marijuana in their own homes. This is in the summary that people don't know about. The black market comes in when people come in from out of state. They either take up residence here or they buy it from the people that are growing it and bring it back to their own states.
That's insane.
That's in the summary. That's like, I can show you the picture, but yes, it is insane, and people need to know this. Andrew Friedman, the Director of Marijuana Coordination for the state of Colorado, said, and I quote, "This is by far the single biggest mistake Colorado has made." And Jim Bogashani, the Communications Director for the campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol, said himself that he wished he had not put homegrown in the ballot, because if the word gets out, people are gonna vote down.
And it doesn't make him any money.
And it doesn't make him any money, correct. Taxes. Section 2 says we can charge an excise tax of 3.75%. Section 3 says we can charge a sales tax of 6.25%, and each municipality can charge up to a max of 2%. Colorado's excise tax is 15%. Their local sales tax is 2.9%, but they also have what's called a marijuana-specific sales tax. That rate is 10%. Washington has a 37% marijuana-specific sales tax rate, plus a 6.5% general tax. And again, I quote Andrew Friedman, "You do not legalize for taxation. It is a myth. You are not going to be able to pave streets. You are not going to be able to pay teachers. Colorado can't at 27.9%, Washington can't at 43.5%, and how are we going to at 12%? Maine actually is on the ballot as well, and their tax is 10%. Edibles, as of December 15th, all our medical marijuana facilities now in operation can begin selling edibles to the public for profit. If a marijuana plant facility has an agreement with the town, and the town says you can never sell recreational, it's now null and void. They can begin selling recreational
So they
marijuana.
can't right now? Like medicinal marijuana is just a plant?
No,
No edibles?
they do have edibles for medicinal.
And that law is already passed, right?
Yes, that's for medicinal.
Right.
But once this
For
passes,
recreational.
they can open that part up to recreational,
Wow.
for profit. And the town has nothing to say about it. Although there is an option to opt out, and opt out means,
So if you're gonna opt out, you have to have a petition by a voter, and there has to be 10% of your voters to sign the petition, and then, once they get 10%, they can take it to a state election, which isn't until 2018. So it
Or-
will be legal, and you can do your best it'll already be here if you have it, and you can do your best to get rid of it. But you have to go to a vote, and it's not till 2018.
Or the towns can have a special election, and that's very costly to do. So it's either by special election or by the biennial state election in 2018. The recreational, which is where they're going to try to push, because that's where they're going to make the profit, because the medical marijuana, we don't tax already on the medical, so they're not making anything off that. They're not in any hurry to push that. They want to push the edibles. They want to push the gummy bears, the brownies, the candy bars, the soda pop. A soda in Colorado has 17 servings of THC. And just to go back a little bit and touch on the marijuana. So the marijuana back in the 60s and 70s, if any of you guys ever remember that, was about 2 or 3% THC. The marijuana that grows today is between 18 and 19% THC. Once the concentrate is extracted from that and it goes into shatter or butter or the concentrated oils, now you have THC that goes up to 99%. In these edibles, in the summary, there is no limit on how much THC can be put into your food products. None. They can advertise on billboards. So where they used to advertise cigarettes and they finally stopped that, they're gonna advertise on billboards, they're gonna advertise on TV ads, they're gonna advertise at the Patriots games, they can advertise anywhere they want. That's in the summary. Then there's drug driving. So if you get pulled over from drug driving and they test you for THC, THC stays in your bloodstream for 30 days, so it won't stand up in a court of law, and there is no standard. They don't have anything in Colorado. There is no standard that's been created yet as like a breathalyzer to test for drug driving. So if there's an accident or anything, it won't stand up in a court of law. Then we have the Cannabis Advisory Board. This is a really great thing because the Cannabis Advisory Board is going to oversee all the operations of the regulating marijuana, so that's great. However, they put in the summary that 9 of the 15 members have to be pro-marijuana people. So the people that are overseeing the industry are the marijuana people, and that's in the summary. And the governor has to have those people selected by February 1st.
But that's only a vote for gets a yes vote.
That's all correct.
Okay.
If that gets a yes. This is, so what we're trying to explain is, this is what could happen if the yes, this is what's in the summary. If a yes were to take place, this is what could happen. And Denise and I are speaking just about everywhere we could possibly speak to inform people just of what's inside the summary. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of people are thinking it's just a little pot, people are gonna smoke it anyways. That's not the issue. Or they're thinking it's the medical. You're trying to take away from my Uncle Joe and he really needs it. No, we're not. That's already legal.
Right.
We're saying this summary was written by the pro-marijuana people to make a profit, and their profit is going to be off the edibles. It's going to be off the recreational. And then they say they want to regulate it like alcohol, so there's also penalties in here. So if there's, and I'll just compare a few, alcohol and marijuana. So if somebody has a fake ID, it's a crime for alcohol. You get jailed for 3 months and or a $200 fine and a 1-year loss of license. Marijuana, it's a civil offense. You get a $100 fine. If a retail establishment serves an intoxicated adult who then drives and is injured, alcohol, they get their license suspended at the bar, restaurant or package store. It's also a crime for 1 year and or a fine of $500. Marijuana, nothing. It's not in the summary. The other things, there's other things, fake ID, that's in the summary. That is not in the summary. Pot shops. So let's say Abington has 100 liquor licenses, not for restaurants but retail. You have to have a minimum of 20% pot shops in your town. So that would be 20 pot shops.
So in other words, if it gets passed and the edibles are allowed, it's not the medicinal marijuana stores that will sell the edibles?
Yes, they will be allowed.
To sell it to anybody? And then anybody can just open a store and sell edibles too?
Correct.
can that get passed? That's crazy.
And it's all in the city. Like I said, they're protecting themselves more than and they did this in Colorado. They saw the mistakes they made, so, but they figure if they can take over New England, then they've got the rest of the states. And I just like to think that Massachusetts is a lot smarter than that, and I'm just praying that they are a lot smarter than that, but I'm telling you, we're up against some fights. We really are, so. And again, the opt-out, so that's the only way. Oh, and also the pot shops. So marijuana federally is illegal. So when these pot shops in Colorado they're all running off of cash sales because banks aren't taking their money because it's federally illegal. So there's tax money that's not being collected there as well. So today's the deadline to vote. Hope everybody's been registered. And then I just want to talk about the report of the Special Senate Committee on Marijuana. This was, Senator Jason Lewis went to Colorado. The governor picked a committee. Senator Jason Lewis headed it up. 9 of them went over to Colorado in January, and they came back and they did this report. They came back with all kinds of information. So this is a really good read. It's 118 pages, but it's not a hard read, but it's really informative because it tells you, it compares Colorado and Washington and Massachusetts. Like, that's where I got the taxes from. So this is what Colorado's taxed, this is what Washington's taxed, and this is what the proposed tax rate is for Massachusetts. So let me just hand you over to Denise.
So I'm gonna ask you guys if you know what DABS is.
No.
Chatter. You did, okay. So,
Yeah, we just.
Cheryl just touched on the fact that we can home grow up to 12 plants per household as long as there are 2 over 21 people living in the house. Your home, your neighbor's home, if you live near a school, you can grow marijuana. No one's gonna know about it because you don't have to register, you don't have to get a license, you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to make sure that you're using organic materials, you're not using pesticides. You fly right under the radar. The biggest thing for me about home growing is that you can give up to 1 ounce of marijuana away, which is a small sandwich bag of, it's about 50 to 60 joints, depending on how you roll it, apparently. And you can give away up to 5 grams of DABs, marijuana concentrate. And if you know anything about that, it's highly flammable to make. There are a couple processes, but the most popular uses butane. And we recently in New York lost a fireman to what's called a DABS lab. That's what they call them. And that's what the explosion was caused by, was a marijuana DABS lab. So you're going to be able to give 5 grams of that away. And for me, that's significant also because all you need is a dime size of dabs. You vape that, and I'm sure you guys see people vaping all the time in public, which is legal. Smoking isn't, vaping is in most communities. You can vape legally in public. So you can vape a dime size of dabs, and it's the equivalent of 5 joints instantly. So you can't smoke 5 joints at once, and you're not going to get, it's physically impossible unless you put them all in your mouth. But you're going to get the same effects with a dime size marijuana dabs as you would by smoking 5 joints instantly. So for me, that's really, really concerning because, we know, unfortunately, it's quite easy for people to grow marijuana in their homes. If we're reading the news, that 460 plants, I think it was 467 plants were just found in Worcester in someone's backyard. That's the other part people don't realize, you can grow it in your backyard. So there's a concern for me there as well because kids know that someone's growing marijuana in their backyard. The other thing is, and I don't really like to go public with this because I don't like to give anybody ideas, but there's an easier method. You can just YouTube it on how to get the dabs, how to make your own dabs with a little bud of marijuana. This is all easily accessible for our youth. So that is extremely concerning to me. And Cheryl also mentioned the OUI marijuana, and one of the reasons, we have a very lenient state when it comes to OUI. You know, we read in the papers, third offense. But the thing with marijuana is, we haven't set a limit on it, so it's very difficult. We have a police officer here. She can probably speak better than I about it. So it's very difficult to prosecute that, and you can't do a blood test on the side of the road. So blood tests show better than a breathalyzer. They have made a machine, it just has too many flaws, so it's not out there for anybody yet. So the blood, marijuana stays in your system for up to 30 days. So it makes it very difficult to prosecute a case, because you can have traces of it in your system, and you're not gonna know if the person was driving impaired when the last time they smoked was. The other thing about that, and Cheryl mentioned that we haven't legalized marijuana federally. So we don't have federal grants. And there are 351 towns and cities in the Commonwealth that will have to purchase a breathalyzer test if and when one is ever figured out to not have any more flaws. So that is going to fall on our town budgets to have to pay for that. We have 109 drug recognition officers, experts they're called, in the state of Massachusetts. They're also, all of our police officers are also going to have to be trained on marijuana. That's something that's happening in Colorado. They're just trying to catch up and train their police officers. I really hate to talk about Colorado. I feel bad for them, actually. We have some people that we talk to daily, and they're always telling us stuff that's going on there because they want to help us. And the whole entire time they're trying to help us, I'm like, oh my gosh, those poor people. Like, they're living in this nightmare they never expected.
All those towns are opting out one by one, so you can't do it as a state, you have to do it individually. And so they're all
Trying
to opt out.
So on this ballot, November 8th, is Massachusetts the only state that's trying to pass this?
There are 5 states because it's very costly to run a campaign. So the marijuana industry could, they could afford to do 5 states. And those are Maine, Nevada, Massachusetts, California, and Arizona.
So the only ones now are Colorado and Washington?
And Oregon, but Washington and Oregon, they didn't have pot shops until about a month ago? I think it was a month ago.
In Alaska.
And Alaska has it. I was gonna say something about DREs, I forget. But, I live with a law enforcement officer, so I tend to learn a little bit about that. And one of the things that happened in Colorado is they have sheriffs, they asked for a moratorium. They asked them to stop changing the law. The law has changed 81 times since they legalized. So the sheriffs, they can't keep up. They can't keep up with what is a law and what isn't a law, and that's, part of the advisory committee that they have. So it's making it
If this was to pass, God forbid, but if it was to pass, how many shops could they say put up in Abington? Is there a limit?
So how many liquor stores do you have? Just liquor stores?
Maybe
Yeah.
15?
In Abington?
Not even, right?
Like 3? I live in Sandwich and we have 15.
I don't know.
it's
Just
more
say we had 10. Just
So you have to have no fewer than 20% of your liquor stores.
So you'd have to have 2.
No, you have to have.
you have to have.
Have to allow. So if you have someone that walks in here and says, we want an application, you can't deny them. You can't deny them on zoning unless, of course, it's in residential.
And to open a store, to sell edibles.
So they can't be in a residential.
They can't be you can't have commercial and
Well, that's
residential
true.
anyways.
Right, yeah.
But you can have home growing in residential. So somebody can grow, I
The
think,
minimum we'd have to have is 2.
the minimum.
If we had-
If we have 10, yeah.
Is there a cap as to how many, or is that just a town?
No, there's no percent.
There's no cap.
No, and I think what you were trying to say on the medicinal part was, if your town has an application, Hanover has an application, they don't have a medicinal marijuana, it's called an RMD, or Registered Medicinal Dispensary. They don't have a dispensary yet, but they have an application, so they automatically are allowed to open it before anybody else, because they're considered an expert in the field of marijuana. So they're automatically allowed to have the first,
Just because they have an application in.
just because it's an application, that's it. and cultivating sites. So some towns, like the town I grew up in is Easton, and it has a cultivating application. Hasn't even opened yet, but somebody pulled an application for it.
That's gonna happen here too soon enough.
They can sell marijuana even though it's just a cultivating. They can open a store, even though they're just supposed to grow it. They can open a store.
So they're all hoping for this to pass, in other words. No?
The medicinal's actually quite surprising. I spoke to somebody the other day and he's not. They believe that medicinal was for medicinal purposes. I mean, I'm sure there are some that did it for revenue purposes, but this gentleman, Dan Delaney, actually he signed under Hannah Kane against it, and he works for medicinal. So
And
he,
medicinal's a nonprofit.
Right,
They're all
and
nonprofit, so they're not like,
is medicinal in all 50 states, or is that
No.
selective to?
it's in like 24.
Yeah.
It's in quite a few.
it's in half. And Florida it's on their ballot. There's a couple states that have medicinal on their ballot this year.
But the marijuana industry, they knew what they were doing, so they started with the decriminalizing the small amounts of marijuana. Then the next step was
Right.
the medicinal, and then this is like going for the bang for your buck.
And you'll hear that they can't smoke in public. You know, you can't smoke in public now.
Right.
But we had Hemp Fest in Boston, and there was a big edibles truck. And there was, I mean, I'm sure everybody saw that on the news. You can't smoke in public, yet you smoke in public. So, you know, the other concern for me is that we are going to saturate our environments with more drugs when we have an opioid crisis. That if we legalize this on December 15th, I truly don't believe that all of the work that our governor has done for the opioid crisis and has more work to do, I don't think the focus will be on that. And I'm not fear-mongering. I really don't think that we'll be able to focus on that and continue the work we're doing if we're gonna put more drugs out there. I think that that sends the wrong message. And I don't know how we can say December 15th, we've gotta figure this out. Cheryl pointed out by February 1st that we have to have an advisory board. The focus is gonna be on that, and I'm sure every town in the Commonwealth is going to be concerned, is gonna try to find a bylaw they can put on this, and it's almost impossible, if you read the ballot, to do any of that. We've lost our local control to it.
And again, the edibles, a big concern too is you know, the children getting a hold of it. Jelly beans, candy bars, you know, all these little things. Somebody was telling me last night in a meeting, they saw actually a Snickers bar that had 15 servings. One of your, you know, like on Halloween, you get the small ones, 15 servings of THC. So, you know, who's going to eat that? A little child is going to see that, or pets have actually died in Colorado because they've eaten food that was left out.
And the way that you get the THC on it is from the marijuana concentrate, the dabs. It's an oil that gets sprayed on there. Chief Carmichael from Walpole actually has a really great YouTube out there, and it's all about the edibles. I don't talk about the edibles too much, but it's all about how it gets on the edibles. So that's why there's no THC limit. It's not like it's baked into it. It's literally sprayed onto it.
So you can spray it on anything.
Well, if you know how to make it,
Right.
yeah, I mean, and if you're allowed to have it in your home without, you're not, you know, the other thing about the black market is, how are you gonna know who's doing what
So
if
when
they can do it?
So when they're growing the 12 plants in their home, they also have the capability, if they watch a YouTube video, to extract the oils,
Right.
make their own labs, you know, and make money. One youth is going to want to go get a job when they can just do
Yeah.
this at home.
Fire departments will be busy, because everybody's gonna be burning down their houses trying to make it.
So 12% tax is not going to do anything to
Right.
the revenue of Massachusetts. So, I mean, it's really,
I think everybody here, you know, you work on this, obviously, and you know that our youth are getting it now. So the black market's not gonna go away because we haven't federally legalized it. And who are the people that are growing it at their homes going to target? Who is their consumer? It's the ones that can't go into a pot shop that are gonna be the ones that buy it. And, you know, I'm not saying our kids are bad kids, but from the age of 12, you're risky. You know, we all remember being 12, you know, and taking risks. And we weren't exposed to what I was certainly not exposed to any of this. And the exposure that our kids are, this is just insane to me that we would consider this. Does anybody have any more questions?
What do either of you say to people that think marijuana isn't a gateway drug?
Well, ask a mother who lost a child. But I won't debate that because that's not the issue here. So, but I've been to, her and I actually have been speaking at a lot of the Lendico meetings. And when we speak, everybody there says, that's the first thing my child started with. So, you know, and I mean, literally everybody was saying that. So whoever took the survey and said it wasn't, I don't know, but my son over there will tell you that that's the first drug of his choice as well. So, you know, they say, how does that go? Not everybody who smokes marijuana gets addicted to heroin, but everybody that's ever tried heroin has marijuana.
Yeah, I mean,
And my answer to the gateway question is, I'm not gonna tell a parent whose child started with marijuana that it isn't a gateway, because that just diminishes it. And if that's what their experience is I don't have that experience to ever say one way or the other. So anybody that has their opinion and has no experience, they really don't have.
And the people that are for this, you know, will tell them, you know, that it affects the children's brains till they're 25, you know, any kind of drug does, you know. But I don't want to debate that with anybody because you can just go round and round. You can go round and round about the gateway. You know, these are things we already know. The thing that I think is most important is to tell them what's on this ballot. You know, what if this should pass? This is what's going to take place.
I had no idea all of that was going on, you know, I had no idea.
A lot of
You just
people-
blew
It's
my mind.
free reign.
You just
Right,
blew
I
my
mean,
mind.
you've seen the ads, right? You've seen there's 2 of them out, you know, and that one of them is that they wanna create more, they're trying to fix the medicinal problem. So medicinal didn't roll out the way they wanted it to, it didn't go as fast, we only have 7 medicinal marijuana stores. And so they are saying that legalizing recreational marijuana will help the medicinal marijuana. But I think if that's what you wanna do, then focus on fixing medicinal marijuana. Recreational marijuana is simply for one purpose, and that is to get high. So, and THC levels that are 95%, we haven't even talked about. They create psychosis, suicidal tendencies, hallucinations. People have died from marijuana. A man killed his wife because he hallucinated. Somebody had so much anxiety, they jumped off the balcony. These are things that no one's gonna tell you. They're just gonna tell you, you can't die from marijuana, meaning you can't overdose
No
from
one's
it.
ever overdosed from marijuana.
Right.
You can overdose from marijuana though. You just might not die from it. But you're gonna have severe psychosis. I mean, especially with dabs. I just read something today that blew my mind. You know, and the biggest thing is you guys work on this, you're doing hidden in plain sight. We spend 1 to 2% on prevention. That's it. Are we gonna spend any more if this is legalized with maybe 12%? Those are the things, like she said, we think about the ballot, and we talk about the ballot, because this to me is just, this is irresponsible, unfortunately.
Again, it was written by and for the pro-marijuana people, and to make a profit off our children. So they figure if they have the next generation coming up that they can get addicted to, they're gonna do it, and they're gonna make the profit. So what we ask is before the election, please share with as many people as you can. You can Google the summary and read it for yourself if you want. It's very complicated. Our attorney, John Sheft, said he's the one who went to the Supreme Judicial Court to try to get it off the ballot because it was misworded. It didn't get off the ballot, obviously, but they were told to reword it because they left recreational out. He said he read it 20 times before he could really decipher it for what it meant. And he's the one who's actually guided us as to how to talk. And he goes and he speaks at all the debates and he'll put them in their place because they'll lie. And actually Channel 5 did a small, go ahead, say.
Oh, I didn't get to see it, I
I
just
didn't
heard
say
all about
anything. I
it.
heard about it too, but they.
We're too
they
busy speaking.
Evaluated the 2 commercials and they found that the pro-marijuana commercial was lies.
Right.
so.
Well,
that
all
was
of
till
those
5,
questions,
so.
I mean, the question about the schools, I mean, you watch, I don't know which way to vote on that either. They manipulate, they word it so crazy that you don't know. I mean, if everybody knew what you just told us tonight, there's no way that that would pass. There's no way anybody would vote that in.
And sadly, we have no money to do this.
Right.
We don't even have money for signs.
Right.
So we're just going to coalitions, we're going to Rotary Cokes, we're going to wherever. we
Soccer
can-
fields.
Soccer fields, tomorrow I'm at a,
We're running out
Rotary
of
club.
time.
We're running out of
21
time.
days.
And we're getting, you know, I heard that there was an influx of kids going to register to vote so that they could get this on the, you know, so we're running out of time. There's, you would not believe how many police officers or nurses or doctors have said, there's nothing wrong with it, this is gonna.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, but they didn't read the ballot.
Right.
You know, they're just thinking
They just
it's a
think it's
little
gonna be legal,
marijuana.
right?
So, I mean,
In Denmark, where it is legal, I guess, it's only 15% THC, and we forgot to say that too. So here, our THC has no cap, which you did say, but in Colorado, there are actually, the healthcare professionals have tried since the ballot was legalized there, since marijuana was legalized there, to put a THC cap, but they haven't been able to. They've not been successful, so there's still no THC limit in Colorado, even though their hospitals and all of their healthcare professionals have told them that there needs to be a cap.
there's also a thing in the summary that says if all these rules and regulations aren't in place by a certain date, that they can just go ahead and start opening their business.
Yeah.
It's in the summary.
So you can check out the Smarter Massachusetts on Facebook or Campaign for a Safe and Healthy Massachusetts 2016 if you want other information too.
We follow Colorado a lot, and it's not just, you know, it's the newspapers, it's the Denver district attorney, and I've got a good one on Facebook, and he speaks, he goes, if you people think that we made any money off of this, you're crazy, because we didn't, and that's coming from the horse's mouth, you know? So, but anyways, yeah, if you would share, yeah, and, you know,
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience? Questions, statement? Okay,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you. So I guess that concludes our meeting for tonight. Again, for you watching at home, we meet the second Wednesday of each month right here in Town Hall, and we try to have a guest speaker each month. And if you want to get involved, please contact us. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have any more t-shirts?
yes, my shirt's still $10.
Cool. I definitely need one.
I have to pay for them out of pocket.
I don't see how